Let's talk BoJack. Thinking about reviewing this show, one of the things that kept coming back to me when I was watching it was a very simple question. Why the hell did I stop watching this show? When it first came on to Netflix years ago, I was kind of hesitant to watch it too far because the first couple episodes made me think it was some weird cross between Family Guy and maybe Rick and Morty. I wasn't really sure what to do with it at the time. I mean, it stars Will Arnett as a talking anthropomorphized horse that is a washed-up actor from a 90s sitcom. Just from that little bit alone, doesn't that kind of sound a little bit insane and like it would turn off most people? I mean, I know I gave it some cross-eyed looks when I saw it on the thumbnail, so hey, I can't really blame anybody for looking at it weirdly. But as the first season of the show went on, it kind of opened up to me. I mean, okay, it still has, and even then at the beginning of the show, it had a lot of that weird BS that comes from adult animation, which is traditionally not something that's really treated very seriously. So it's kind of wacky and definitely has those vibes of Family Guy going on with just the bits of lull random happening. But throughout it, it talked about serious things. Depression, addiction, alcoholism, forgiveness, finding a foothold in life, and just in general finding the foothold that you need to have in life. Like, as an example, throughout this series, all the characters are on kind of this little hamster wheel where they're trying to figure out how to change themselves. But not only is it hard to figure out how you're supposed to do that, it takes literal years, assuming they even change at all. I might be wrong with my timeline on this because it's a little bit muddied, but I'm pretty sure that over the course of 6 seasons, something close to like a decade passes in the show's time. And only in the end of the series do people actually start to change a little bit. And even then, it's kind of a tenuous change at best. It makes it clear that change is possible, but very, very difficult. Which, for a show with anthropomorphized animals just kind of being weird, it's refreshing to see that kind of character analysis. Especially since it's pretty realistic. Like, let's talk about our title character for a few minutes. Throughout the course of the series, BoJack himself has so many times where he wants to be a better person, but because he's so damaged and spent his life that way for so long, that it's almost functionally impossible for him to understand how to do that. I mean, even when he goes to rehab and gets the help he needs, he's not fixed completely. I mean, okay, sure. He accepts that he has a substance abuse problem and goes to AA. He finds a job that he actually genuinely likes and it's good for him, good for his mental health, and he accepts his age more. But even then, he's not fixed. A light tangent, but I'm kind of reminded of this one Jordan Peterson quote. Flame me in the comments if you want. Where he says something along the lines of a good person is not a weak person, but someone who's very dangerous and has it under control. I'm not sure if there's any kind of similar definition of that when we're talking about substance abuse or anything like that as far as recovery, but I could definitely see it being something like to be in recovery is not to be cured, but to have strong urges but still be disciplined about it. I'm butchering that, but you get my point. I don't know. Gotta be honest, I haven't really felt the need to read this 12 Steps program. Despite me owning this, I avoid this stuff like the plague. And it doesn't just focus on BoJack and his journey. It focuses on Princess Carolyn and her have-it-all lifestyle that she desperately wants. It focuses on Mr. Peanut Butter and realizing that sometimes what you need is to not be in a relationship and to be alone. Just to name a couple. I mean, for a goofy show with talking animals, this really kind of creeps up on you with the level of depth and complexity each of these characters have. Before we get too deep into it, I just want to talk about maybe the only thing I don't really like about it all that much. And that's the politics. And I'm not gonna sit here and complain about the liberals are trying to convert us to Satanism, trying to brainwash us with microwaves that are emitted into our testicles. What the hell am I doing to myself right now? Or anything like that, okay? I get it. Hollywood, the entertainment industry at large, is in general of a certain socio-ideological position. I've accepted that as someone who is of more conservative, libertarian mindset, what have you, okay? I'm not a fan of it, but I can accept it. Part and parcel of ingesting media from left-wing people, okay guys? And just as an aside, because it always annoys me, if you're one of those people who's trying to say that a TV show or a movie or anything like that is brainwashing you, and you're afraid it's gonna work, you're a weak-minded individual and you need to reevaluate yourself. Like, pronto. I think my biggest complaints about politics in the show is that when they come up, it's just so out of place as to not make sense, and when it's done, it never comes up again. Like, there's a few points early on in the series where They allude to actual real-world things happening, and I think some of it's political, but they ditch it in favor of weird Hollywood BS which is kind of true to life. I mean, how many actual genocides, shortages of supplies, and stuff throughout the world are there? But meanwhile, we're still convinced that Brad and Kim K, or whoever the hell, are more important than that. I'm not trying to be a moralistic individual here or anything. I'm just genuinely asking, because I saw that in the show and I thought to myself, you know what? Kind of realistic even then. But anyway, like I said, my biggest complaint is that when they happen, it just feels out of place. And this show is kind of jarring enough as it is. I mean, worms and snakes are somehow bipedal, and it's the politics that's screwing with me here. Like, there's an episode about gun control, and all they end up doing at the end is just banning guns, and then nothing. This doesn't come up at all again throughout the entirety of the series. It's just kind of there to be there for some reason. Like, some shows that have political messages, like South Park, I can kind of get, because at least Matt Stone and Trey Parker are trying to say something and hold a mirror to all of us and laugh. But that's South Park, not BoJack. Like, BoJack has never been about the politics, it's been about the personal journey. So when they go there, it's really weird and off-putting. The show has a lot of issues with fracking also, which... okay. And besides 1 or 2 episodes, after they're done talking about it, they're done talking about it. Like, I was already gonna be annoyed with the politics anyway, but the fact that they just kind of pick it up and drop it like a dirty shirt also makes it that much more annoying to me. Because it wastes time. Fiction has historically been used to promote political agendas! Well, at a certain point, that's stupid as all get out. You didn't complain when the Punisher took a pro-gun stance! Because unlike Arrow, the Punisher at least acknowledges that crazy people exist. You still agree with it, though! Yeah, well, everyone's a hypocrite in some way, so shut the hell up. If I have to be okay with at least one political talking point, which shouldn't even be a political talking point, just history, you know? It's gonna be the Bill of Frickin' Rights, idiots. Like, that whole conversation I just had by myself with some straw man I just made up on the fly? Yeah, no, that's never gonna come up again. I'm never gonna talk about it. That's exactly what happens in the show, and it tries to take it to a political message, to the point where it shouldn't have even had existed, ever. Buy guns and ammo! Buy guns and... In preparation for this video, I thought it would be a good idea to watch some of Wisecrack's videos about the philosophies within the show. I already kind of knew it was going to have some nihilistic tones to it, even with me being tone deaf on that kind of thing, but I just wanted to get some expansion. Especially since whenever I hear people talk about nihilism, all I can think of is a bunch of Rick Sanchez fanboys that really don't understand the deeper implications of what that philosophy really entails, or the subsets of it. What softens the blow for me on it quite a bit is, it's not like Rick and Morty. It's not cosmic nihilism. It's not Morty telling his sister, hey,
nobody exists on purpose. Nobody belongs anywhere. Everybody's gonna die. Come watch TV.
Like, what I personally got from the show is that the message is, there's a way for you to find where you belong and how to find yourself and be the best possible version of yourself you can be. It exists, there is a path to do that, but it's not like there's a set framework, and to find out what it is you need to do is extremely difficult. I mean, okay, I'm not someone who really believes that there's no discernible meaning to life and that there's no moral framework to the universe. I mean, I was raised a Christian, I'm pretty sure Jesus still had the right idea on things, you know? I'm not gonna really draw out my own religious or spiritual thoughts on things, just know that going forward, right? But in a way I can still respect it, especially if we're to assume that we're all we've got down here and that people like Jesus, Buddha, and anyone else I can't think of just want us to all get along and be good to one another. But on another level, I think that this show is about more than just being adrift, not really knowing where you belong and trying to find out. It's about change. In most TV shows that I've seen, it's expected. It's a requirement that each character will undergo some kind of transformative arc throughout the course of a season. And maybe the season in time takes place over just a couple days. maybe it's several months, maybe it's a year, whatever. But the change happens by the end of the season, and they're a different person because of it. In BoJack, though, change in the way that we're expecting to see it in most TV, it's something that we don't see very much of. And when we do see it, it's very minuscule. Or at least that's how it comes across in the wake of all kinds of shows that have more grandiose conclusions in serialized television. Make no mistake, okay? Characters in this show undergo extreme character development, but it is so slow and painful, you'd think you were getting your teeth pulled out with pliers and no anesthetic. Take BoJack, for example. Let's look at our title character. Throughout the first half of this show, BoJack is as toxic and adrift as a sentient cloud of mustard gas. He wants to be better, but he does not know how to do it. And because of that, he only further perpetuates the problems that he's having in a way that can only be likened to attaching a motor to a revolving door. It's not until the finale of season 5, practically towards the end of this series, that BoJack makes a conscious decision to go to rehab to benefit himself. And even then, that change, that right there, is such a tenuous tightrope walk that he could relapse at any moment and just regress back to what we saw of him in season 1. The biggest thing I could really take away from this show is that change is a very constant uphill battle. Not to get too deep or anything like that, because I already dropped the Jordan Peterson thing and I kind of felt like an edgy boy doing it, but BoJack sort of reminds me of Sisyphus from Greek mythology. You know, the guy pushes the boulder up the mountain for all of eternity because it keeps rolling down, and that's just his lot in life. Just boulder goes up, boulder goes down, boulder goes up, boulder goes down. Except in this case, eventually Sisyphus finds a plateau and he's able to rest for a second, but it's such a small bit of purchase that if he's not careful, he's gonna go back to the beginning right where he started. But if he maintains his footing and knows where he's going, then he can still progress up the mountain and be maybe the best possible version of himself he can be. But he's got to be careful. Hi, Gun Jesus.
Hey, guys.
I remember this one bit from... I just read about it, but it was Joss Whedon at, I think, Comic-Con, or maybe it was one of the smaller cons or something like that, where he was answering a question from a fan of the show Angel. And anybody who's seen Angel knows exactly how it ends, because it was just a very stop kind of ending. Because the show didn't really end, but it kind of did. The conclusion of the man who was asking the question, not really even asking the question, just kind of stating an opinion and when later a fact, was just saying that the final word of the show, or the final sentence I should say, let's go to work, or let's get to work, something like that, was the show's way of saying that it ended without ending. Like, Angel is still gonna kick all kinds of demon vampire butt up and down LA and just keep doing it, and he's going to work, and that's how the show ends. It ends by not ending. The adventure continues on, it's just we don't see it. Unless you read the comics, which I did. They were weird. I'm butchering it quite a bit, but that's essentially what he said, and Joss Whedon himself in that panel actually said, yes, you nailed it. Well now. And I say that the same kind of thing happens by the end of this show. Without giving away everything about how it ends, this show doesn't end with making it feel like every character is fixed or the best possible version of themselves or anything like that. It feels more like they've just changed from when we first met them. And given how little time we have with them in the final episode where we do see these changes, we have no idea if they're lasting or if they're just temporary. We have no idea if BoJack is going to relapse. We don't really see any evidence that Todd is any different from when he first started and was just kind of a goofball. Princess Carolyn's marriage is basically being used as a social gathering for work. Mr. Peanut Butter is still Mr. Peanut Butter, so kind of oblivious on things. Nothing is guaranteed without hard work is essentially what I got from this finale. And I know I'm getting really deep right now about a show that's essentially voiced by an animal version of Job Bluth from Arrested Development, but it struck a chord with me really hard that I wasn't expecting when I first started it all those years ago. And I know it did the same for a lot of other people too. For all its random wackiness and insanity, this is a show that is about change deep down over a long period of time. There are no quick fixes when we're talking about personal development. There is only recognizing what you are and making an honest-to-God effort in being the best thing that you can be. Or, on the flip side, casting it all to the wind and drowning your sorrows. Easier to do with this in Powerade, I imagine. Obviously, I'm doing a lot of simplifications here, but I think that kind of boils down the moral of the show fairly well, or at least the moral that I got from it. If you like adult animated shows that are very silly but have a propensity to get serious and very dark, that have stellar voice acting and an amazing cast, please, I implore you, do not overlook this show. If you want to know how good it is, consider the fact that I think among how many shows there are on Netflix that are Netflix originals, this is one of the few that has actually been syndicated on regular cable. I'm pretty sure this show is actually still on Comedy Central. There might be others, but this is the only one I can think of off the top of my head. Thank you, John Ward, for the amazing painting, by the way. This is going to be in probably every video somewhere at this point now. Thank you all for watching. I'm Dan the Movie Man. Have a great day.